Welcome to RPE Spotlight, a monthly series uplifting the expertise of California preventionists. Each month, we spotlight a new topic presented by and for RPE programs in California. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our July RPE Spotlight Youth Panel. We're so glad that you all could make it. This is a really great turnout. I will not be facilitating this conversation, so I am going to hand it over to Jen Torres from Center for Nonviolent Community. So take it away, Jen. I'll pass the mic.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Jen Torres from the Center for Nonviolent Community in Sonora, she, her pronouns. And I have with me two youth today, and they are going to be teaching us how to include more youth input into our programs. We work with youth, and it's just great to have them at the table to let us know what it is that they want and need in order to have successful programs, to be fun and engaging. So I think we will just dive right in with our first question, and as they answer it, they are going to tell us their names and their pronouns and where they're from. But let's get started with Annika. Tell us what you're excited about, what projects you've worked on, and some of your highs and lows.
Well, hi, my name is Annika Miltner. My pronouns are they, she, and I live in San Luis Obispo, California. I work with Close to Home, which is a branch of Lumina. We've done a lot of projects. Currently, we just published a zine that's both digital and physical, and it's entirely created by youth. And it was just a really cool experience, and that's one of the big projects that we started in our group. Highs and lows. Highs is that I just love the community that I work in. I love the people that I'm around and being able to have a platform to have my ideas be out there. And I can't really think of many lows because it's just been such a great experience, but COVID is always a low. I think everyone can agree with that. And it's been tough trying to think of things to do with COVID, but I think that in itself, it might also be a high because it sparks our creativity, so.
And Estrella, how about you? Tell us what you're excited about.
All right. Hi, my name is Estrella Torres. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm from Sonora. I work with Center for Nonviolent Community in Sonora, and I've been helping with their YouTube page at CNVC Sonora, focusing on healthy relationships and consent, as well as sexual harassment prevention and education. There are many highs of volunteering and helping out and supporting amazing fundraisers or foundations like Close to Home and CNVC, and everyone joining us today. And so I think one of the main would be sharing the passion, because this is what I really enjoy doing, knowing that I have a purpose to help out and I can use my voice. But a low would probably be that the topic like sexual harassment and domestic violence has a very negative stigma attached to it. So it's not taught as much as it could be in schools and just around. And it's very sensitive, so not many kids are exposed to it. So I think that would be great to change.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those things. And also, we will be having a question and answer period at the end of the questions. And just so everybody knows, we have 3 questions that we will be asking, 3 kind of umbrella questions that we'll be asking. And so please feel free that near the end to ask these experts about their thoughts and feelings on youth working in the prevention field. Estrella, tell us your why. Why is this important to you? What brought you here? What keeps you coming back? Just kind of give us a big picture of why it's so important to you.
Well, I went to a leadership school, and we focused mainly on the 7 habits of highly important people, highly important, effective people. And we started with community service projects. We always had them every year, and we had to help out. And that's really what got me interested. And I was really encouraged, along with other students, to help out. And so I was asked to, a few years back, to make a video for Center for Nonviolent Communities YouTube page. And I was really excited to learn more and invite others along with me to learn how to be safe and why that's so important. And the fact that I can use my voice to help, not only to be an advocate, but perhaps even empowering someone else to add to the effect and help others as well, is really an amazing feeling. So I am continuing to do YouTube videos and help out as much as I can and teach people why, like, how to be safe and why it's so important.
Annika, how about you?
Well, like Estrella, I also came from a school where I participated in ASB and leadership, and I've always kind of had those roles of leadership. I've also always been involved in community service, volunteering at the food bank, things like that. And so I've always been a person who's very dedicated to making my community a better place, because I think that that's, if everyone makes their community a better place, then, you know, everything's good. So I was actually recommended through one of my friends. They sent me a post from Close to Home's Instagram page, and they were like, hey, this group is looking for like people to volunteer. And I was like, they were like, you would be interested in this? And I was like, yes, I'd totally be interested in that. And so I signed up to volunteer, and then it just kind of got started there. What keeps me coming back, the people, the work I'm doing, it's just a great place to be and to work. And I think it's not only helpful to my community, but it's helpful to myself to be able to have fun and be around people that have the same passions and want to work for the same things that I do. And I think that it's just a great way to spend my time.
Do you find that you're able to have other people, your friends or other people in your community, get excited about joining? You know, do you see that in your ASB groups or in other groups that you're kind of in, that you kind of have like-minded people that you can kind of tap into to join?
For sure. I often share projects that we do in my volunteer group, and I've gotten people that I know expressing like their gratitude for my volunteer work, and maybe even like looking into volunteering themselves and where to volunteer with based on what they're interested in volunteering in. And I think it's really great because you can kind of just get other youth involved when you share your projects and things like that, and people tend to be quite interested when it's something that's like physical and right in front of them. And I think it's just really great how you can bring people together like that.
You were told about your group projects and things through Instagram. Is that a good way to like connect with people?
I totally think Instagram is a good way to connect with people. I know that I find out about a lot of events and people and volunteer groups through Instagram. I think it's a great place to share projects. I know that when I do projects through Close to Home, I share them on my school's leadership Instagram so that other people from my school can get involved. And I know that other organizations share other organizations' media, and it just kind of gets everyone involved in everything. And I think seeing that media is just really important because people want to get involved when it's there and easy for them to get involved.
And Estrella, you mentioned a YouTube channel. Um, do you find that that's a good way to share the work that you are doing?
Yes, I do think that it is important because you can make videos and there's a lot of people on YouTube that are in organizations that use YouTube as their platform. And I think it's a really easy platform to use to get more attention to it because there's so much stuff you can do with it.
Mhm. And I think that, once things are on YouTube, links are pretty easy to share and to get out there, right? Well, what kind of advice can you share with, how many people do we have on here? We have 36 people on here right now, which is really awesome. And they're all educators and working with youth. And what kind of advice can you give to these educators about how they can get out of the way to let youth just like you to take the lead? And what is it that youth need to stay involved once we get them into our programs? What can we do to keep them engaged? Monica, go ahead.
Well, I definitely think that it's definitely a mindset to put yourself in, because I think that youth know what youth want. And if you think about it that way, you can get a lot more progress forward for youth, because youth want to be involved when things affect them in positive ways. And sometimes it's good to get a perspective from youth and adults, not just one or the other. And I think to get and stay involved is just a good balance and demonstration of what volunteer work really is, because I know that one of the things that keeps me personally staying is that balance of fun and work, because it's such a great environment. We have, not every day is something that we're always working on something that's super grueling or super hard. We have days where we get to know each other, or have we go out and do something or something like that. And I think that that keeps me going, because it's just a place where it's fun, but I also know that I'm making an impact on my community. And so I also think that, we created the zine, so being able to show my work to other people kind of gets people involved, because they're like, wow, things are actually happening. Like, I want to be part of this. So I think that that's one of the things that like gets youth involved and makes them stay involved, because things are happening and they're able to have that platform. Because I think a lot of youth think that their voices are being run over by people who are in larger positions of power, which oftentimes is true. And so having that platform and being able to share your ideas, I think, is really important.
Tell us a little bit more about your zine. What sort of topics did you broach when you were doing that, and what kind of was your process?
Well, we worked it's a zine that's titled Working Toward a Violence-Free Community. And we just included youth art. We had a submission for art for against like sexual violence or just violence in general. We had questions talking about consent. We had pages talking about healthy relationships. And it was entirely done by my youth team. We did the whole zine ourselves on graphic. We did all the graphic design, everything in it. And I think it was great because it was just led by us, and we were given that platform to just have our ideas in a physical form. And it was just great because it was the subheading of the title is created by youth for everyone in the community, and it was just a great experience to be able to talk about these topics and be able to, as someone who's younger than a lot of people in volunteer work, to have my work out there in the community with the rest of my team.
Nice. And how do you know that the work that you're doing is making an impact? How do you see that, feel that?
I think that I can see it in many ways. First of all, like physically in my community, I know that it's being distributed. I can see the mayor posting about it. I can see different people in my community posting about it. And it's like, look at what happened here. Like, this is a great like thing to check out. And so it's like, I can see people spreading it to each other and it kind of growing into this big web of like people talking about what's going on. And even in my little personal community of like friends, I can see people talking to each other, my friends congratulating for me for it, my friends talking about the content in the zine, and my friends talk to their friends or my friends talk to their parents, and then again it just becomes this big web of people talking about it. And so because people like to spread things to other people, that's how community is. So I think that that's kind of how those ideas get shared around and how that impact is seen in our community.
How did you feel when the mayor had posted about your zine? I mean, that's pretty exciting.
I mean, I think it's pretty exciting too. She showed up for the branch launch. It's just a great experience because so many people get to see what's going on. And I appreciate the involvement because it gets people like really thinking like, this is really important, like why, if it's on this page, it must mean something. And so people are really checking it out. And I think it's just awesome that community wants to be involved.
You had mentioned that the mayor came to the launch of it. Is it important to invite community members and leaders to the launches of things, to invite them to the events?
Oh, for sure. I think that having people in big, power positions in community is really important because it allows kind of for your ideas to have an even bigger platform because those people are important and a lot of people in your community look up to them. And so it kind of inspires people to look at how important the things you are really doing are. And I just think it's great because having everyone in the community involved, especially people who are higher up in positions of power, kind of just strengthens that web and allows for more people to just come together.
Fantastic. Estrella, can you share any advice with the educators here about how to get out of the way in order to let young leaders take the lead?
Well, I was going to say a very similar thing. Youth just want to be a part of the conversation and part of maybe some decision making because they know what needs to be improved. So I think that's really a main factor is letting youth help. And I think in order to stay involved, the encouragement that they can help and that they can use their power and their voice for something good. That was the main reason why I enjoyed it so much, was because I knew that I could make an impact and I could help at least one person. And again, in most cases, this subject of sexual harassment or domestic violence can be very serious, but it can also be included with fun, like what we did with Shifting Boundary News, and other agencies use that as well, which means you're doing something really useful and helpful and giving also a little bit of entertainment so it keeps you involved. So I think just mixing in more like fun, more interactions with each other could make it a lot better to drive your point and to help understand better.
And you mentioned Shifting Boundaries News. What is that, and what was your role in that?
I helped write the script. It is a video and it is about consent and boundaries, but it's also about how to stay safe in relationships. There are different episodes about different areas of the topic of boundaries. And it is like a little newsroom where we're all talking to each other and sharing information. And there's all these skits involved, and they're really fun, and they keep you like they keep you involved in focused on what's happening, because if it was just fully serious, there's not as much of like what's going to happen, or that like little spark kind of thing.
And how do you know that the programs and the projects that you're working on, how do you know that they're making an impact? How does that feel for you?
Well, knowing that some of them are being showed in schools, that I think is a main factor. It makes me feel really glad to be a part of this, because I know there are some people struggling. There are many people struggling that maybe don't understand what's actually happening as youth or adults, whichever one. These videos can be very inclusive and is for everyone. And it makes me feel glad to be a part of something so important. And I'm just very grateful that people are using it, and that hopefully it can help them in their.
Yeah. And what do youth need to get and stay involved? What do you think, Estrella?
Like I said, the encouragement that you're doing something right and that you can use your voice to help. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of encouragement. I'm hearing lots of encouragement, lots of fun to kind of balance out these topics that can be heavy. And how, when you are interacting, Annika, when you're interacting with people in the public and you're telling them about your work, do you feel comfortable using the terms, domestic violence and sexual assault and rape, and how is that received?
Well, I usually start, my pitch with the title of our zine, actually, which again is working toward a not violence-free community, because I think that that's kind of a broader topic. But when people start asking me the specifics, I'm definitely not afraid to use those terms and phrases, because volunteer work is for the person who wants to be in it. And so if those topics make you uncomfortable, then I'm not expecting you to volunteer or want to be interested in what I'm interested in, because it's not like I'm going to hide those topics from you. So I think it's important, and it's not something that should be hush hush. I think that talking about these things is what leads to change. And so by kind of putting it away and not using those terms, we kind of take away from the work that we're doing.
And Estrella, how about you?
Can you restate the question?
Yes. When you are discussing your work and your projects with people in the community or people in your school, do you feel comfortable, or do you use the terms domestic violence and sexual abuse or assault and rape, and how is that received?
I think it's really important to use those words and to talk about it openly, because it happens to so many people and there are so many survivors that it takes away from them. So I think it really needs to be talked about more and educated more, because it's a very important topic and it can happen at any age. There can be domestic violence at any age and in any setting, really. So I think that for me, it really helps like drive what you're saying, because it is really important. And maybe some people aren't as comfortable because they don't understand what it is, but that's why we're all learning. I'm still learning more about all this topic, and most people that I've talked to it about, they seem very open and wanting to learn. So I think that more education on this is really needed because people want to learn, they want to know and how they can help. I know a lot of people that I've talked to want to help, but they don't know where or where to get the opportunities. So I think that's important as well.
Mhm, mhm. Um, as you both move forward, do you feel that there is lots of growth opportunities for you? And we didn't really discuss this before, but what are some of the dreams that you have when you're thinking about your programs, and what directions you want to take them in? What does that look like for you, Annika?
Well, I think there's always growth opportunities because although we focus on preventing sexual violence and domestic violence, we can talk about so many other things in our group. And I tend to learn a lot just from other people's experiences and like what they share in our group. And I think I just want to create a big change in our community. I want to create a lasting change that I can see. I want to see people involved. I want to see things happening. And although that's going to take a long time, I'm committed to it and I want to see that change and I'm here to see that change. And being the youth, I'm going to, be here for a long time and the rest of the youth are too. And so the youth can help spark that change. And so I just kind of want to see, I don't know exactly what specifically, but I'm open to anything because I think that people's ideas are what create a community, and giving people a platform to share what they want in our community is what's going to create that change.
Mhm, mhm. And Estrella, what are some of your dreams in moving forward um, to help stop the violence?
For me, I think I've said this a lot, but more education. I think it's really important because, we all have so much to learn from this. And I'm learning all the time about new things, just writing scripts or working with other people and seeing their perspective. Something for the community to grow, I would like to see more open communication for this. Like I've said before, it can happen at any age. There is no, it's just not gonna, it's inevitable, is what I mean to some people. It's very, it needs to be more open and not as censored because when it's too censored, you have to like go around it. And it needs to be talked about more. Yeah, I feel like I'm repeating the same thing.
So I'm hearing you say that you think that that it happens in our communities, and we need to embrace the language um, and not have people feel that they can't talk about it. That maybe it gets perpetuated more when we don't talk about it. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
So we have a question from the chat, and it's: do you think youth listen to other youth more than adults when they are trying to find help? Estrella?
I think that is really true, that youth are more comfortable speaking with other youth that they know and that maybe they're more comfortable with because sometimes um, if you see like on shows, the adults are kind of more pushy towards it, can be, that's not the case. Um, but it's just more interaction with youth that they may understand more because they are of the same age or in the same class learning the same thing. that they may feel more or less exposed. Yeah, so they might be easier to talk to you.
Yeah. Annika, do you feel that youth kind of reach out to other youth when they're trying to find help?
I think I definitely agree with what Estrella said, that youth do, reach out toward youth. And I think it's because a lot of times big organizations or names or adults in position of power can be kind of intimidating to people who haven't done or youth that haven't done volunteer work before, because it's just something so new. And so it's scary to get into something big, because it's tough to balance everything and be able to work in a place and feel like you're allowed to be there. And so I think that when I talk to my friends about, my volunteer work, it makes it or I present it as a place where it's safe and that it's something that anyone can be involved with. And just because I'm in leadership, or I, was vice president, or I'm in ASB, that doesn't necessarily mean that only ASB kids or only leadership kids can work in, violence prevention. Like, I want to make it clear that all youth have, the right to be able to share their opinions and create a better community. And so I think that when youth hear that from other youth, it's more impactful sometimes than youth hearing it from big organizations on TV or things like that.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say that a youth walking into an agency can feel overwhelmed, feel out of place because maybe they're the only young person in there. What are your thoughts on how we can create a welcoming environment for a youth that wants to help, but they walk in and they see they're the only one there that under a certain age? I can see how that would be really intimidating. What can we do so that it's not so intimidating as they walk through our doors?
Well, I think that as simple as it is, like finding what accommodates youth is important, like asking what makes them comfortable, what things they're okay talking about. I know that when we go into the office, we have, sticky notes, things to write on. We have people to talk to, we have icebreakers, things. We also have in our office, we have a youth space, like a room that's specifically designed for the youth, to be able to work and just have a place to be. And it definitely makes me feel as though like I'm important. It was kind of like I'm supposed to be here, like I have an actual place to be in this office, and I'm supposed to be here, and my work is important here. And so I think kind of just providing that opportunity for youth to share what makes them comfortable in an office space like that is important, because I think that everyone, not just youth, needs to be comfortable with the work that they're doing and how they're doing that work in their space.
Mm-hmm. In Estrella, what are your thoughts on how to make the youth that's walking through our doors and saying, I've made it over the threshold, but now I see I'm the only young person here and I want to run away? How do we bring that person past the door into our agencies?
I think that respect for both, not or like seeing each other as equals, not like this is a youth, this is the adult, but like the thought of both parties can add to something, like conversation. Just being a part of conversations and discussions, I feel like is really big, because I know I have been in meetings with only adults and it can be very intimidating. But just knowing that I can add something to the conversation and that I know what you're talking about can be very calming. And just the thought of being able to act. So I think having more conversations and including the youth into it, uh, instead of like, going around the questions for the youth. I think that, and also being like a representation of youth. If you ask them more questions like, what, from your perspective, what do you think is like the best for this?
Monica, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, Estrella kind of made me think. We also sometimes, I mean, all of our meetings tend to be intergenerational, but sometimes we'll have intergenerational meetings where we will just do icebreakers or talk to each other or get to know each other. And it kind of lets us all be on the same level when we have those icebreakers, because there is no separation, kind of what Estrella was saying. And I think that's important because although the ideas are separate, I want the community that I work in to be a unit, because although we have different perspectives, I don't want to be separated as a category, you know, like I don't want to think of myself in an office space as lesser or, you know, not as important as someone else, because although we're all different, we're all a unit and we work together and complement our differences. So I think that Estrella had that a really good point with that.
I'm curious, as we will go into the Q&A in just a few moments. I'm curious how many agencies have office space dedicated to their youth and their youth programs. Estrella, do you have space at your agency for you to work on your projects?
I do. I recently got a desk with my own little area so I can work on my project. And I think that's also important, having a dedicated space. It doesn't have to be like a room, but just like a little area where you can feel more included, like you have a purpose there. I think, well, for me, it has really helped, and I feel more comfortable and yeah, getting to know everyone and being in everyone's, I'm just there with people, and it can make you feel more at ease and less intimidated. I think that's a great thing to have, a little space.
I'm hearing, and let me know if this is not quite correct, that both of you maybe are in the agency offices, not just at dedicated meeting times, but you're just kind of there getting to know people and just being part of the atmosphere. Monica, is that correct or not?
Well, I mean, our offices just kind of switched, so everything's getting put together right now, and I haven't exactly had the chance to just be in the office, but Arthi and the rest of the youth leaders and just leaders in the office have made it very clear that in the office hours of Illumina, you can go in there and work in the youth space whenever you want, even if it's unrelated to the work that we're doing there. I can go in there and do homework. There's a TV in there. We can go watch something or hang out, you know, just have fun with each other. And I think it's great to create not only a bond with my team, but also a bond with the space that I'm working in, because being comfortable in the space that you're working in is kind of the first step of being able to like fully open up in that space. And so I know like having that opportunity to be there, especially because it's in town, you know, close to my school, I could always go there after school or have, if I have free time, go in there and just hang out with, you know, people in my team. I just think it's a great like opportunity and like place to have.
I really like what you said about it's not only about bonding with the people that you work with, but bonding with the place. I personally, I've never thought about that. And I just think, well, why not? You know, that would definitely make people feel more welcome and want to come in. So there is a question about when you are the only youth in a room, what is it that the adults can do to kind of help you feel more comfortable in speaking out? Estrella, go ahead.
We kind of touched on this a little bit, just making you feel more welcome, as in talking, maybe some icebreakers, um, and letting everyone have their own perspective and view of a discussion or really anything, just having your own perspective, and your own opinion as well. Yeah.
Kind of leaving space available and open. And I think, you know, when we were discussing this today, the two panelists, you know, asked that, you know, when the questions were asked, you know, that each one have their name said, so that it wasn't just like this open space, is it my turn to talk or not, and that they felt more comfortable. And I'm curious if in a meeting where you're the only youth, that the adults remember to turn to you and say, you know, Annika, let us hear from you. Is that something that you would like to see?
I was actually going to make that exact point when you asked me the next question, because my team is very good at involving everyone in the conversation. I don't feel like I really like have to push my way through anyone's like speeches. There's always a space for me to talk. And there's always people asking me for my opinion. You know, there's always like a, what do you think about this? Or even if it was just like, Annika, how was your weekend? And then we have a conversation that relates to my weekend, and other people are listening and talking about something that they did in their weekend that related to my weekend, you know? And it's just having those conversations and being able to have like my voice heard, and like being aware that I'm being listened to, like actively. I'm not being just heard, I'm being listened to. And it's just like, I really enjoy that feeling of, you know, being important in that space and having my voice heard throughout everyone there.
Yeah. Fantastic. You know, it's those little things that sometimes we get so caught up in our own thoughts or that we forget, you know, to acknowledge each other, and then to give them space to say what's on their mind. We're always in such a hurry, maybe, or thinking about the next thing. So let us open up to questions from our audience here. You can either type them into the chat box, or go ahead and unmute yourself and let us know what you think.
I have a question. You know, there are different youth leadership teams like the ones you participate in across the state, at least in the RPE program. And I wonder, you know, if you could spend time with them, you know, would you, well, I guess one, like, would you want to meet other young people doing this similar work? And if you could, what do you think that would look like? What would you want to learn from them? What would you want to do with them? Yeah, that's my question.
I can go ahead. I know that's a really good question. I haven't actually thought about that much, but I know that since I love my team, because they have the same passions as I do, I'm sure I'd love every other team because they also have the same passions as I do. So I'm sure it wouldn't be any short of a good time, but I don't know what we would do. I'd love to get to know people on a personal level, but I'd also love to hear what people have been doing specifically in like their groups and projects, because I think it's great to get ideas from others, especially other youth, because you know, I'm also still learning, as Andrea said, we're all still learning. So learning from other youth, I think, is great because we can kind of build off of each other's ideas and give each other's voices meaning. And so I think if I were to meet other people from youth groups in California, I would just, keep learning about what they're doing, let them share what they're proud of, hear what they do on a week-to-week basis. I think it would just be like a really great experience.
Mr. A, do you have any thoughts on that?
I was just thinking the similar thing. Since we've all been learning like the similar topics, but in different ways, I think it would be really interesting to see how everyone else views different like areas of it, like how they could view healthy relationships and like what they have done. Because all youth are different, everyone has their own opinions. So I think it's good. I think it would be really fun to see how everyone else uses what they've learned in their life as well.
I have a follow-up question to Jesse's question. I think it's a great one. Hi, thank you so much for joining today. It's really helpful to hear your perspectives. So I'm curious because back in the day, a few years ago, we used to bring youth together to talk about like their projects, like, to share like what you've done. Oh, that's a great idea. This is how I did it, and so on. So because of COVID, a lot has changed. A lot of people are still meeting like virtually, like, through Zoom and not in person. Do you think youth would be interested in connecting like virtually, like across the state? Or do you think it would be more like in person?
Annika, go ahead.
Well, I think that in general, I know that I would prefer meeting in person because I think there's just that little bit of extra like community feeling in person, but not, of course, COVID doesn't always allow that, but and it's tough. I mean, obviously it's not like I can just fly up to the top of California every day. So I can see how that would be tough, but I know that like I would personally prefer that like bond and feeling of being in person because I feel like that's just a different feeling than being on Zoom. But I still think that being on Zoom would be a good option as well because you would still be able to hear voices and listen to other people.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Isra.
Okay. I was gonna say, I would be really interested. I know a lot of people that I know who have been involved with youth mentoring would be really interested in that. Just like I said, meeting everyone, seeing their views, and I think yes, it would be a lot nicer in person for better interaction, and it would be a lot easier to put each other at ease because I know Zoom is like really right in your face and everyone's there. But I think many youth would probably be interested in that. I'm just speaking for myself.
Oh. Do you think that if you were to have this meeting of the minds, that you would like adults to also be in the room, and maybe what their participation would be, maybe just as audience members, maybe as participants? What do you think about that? Go ahead, Annika.
Do you mind repeating the question? Sorry, my internet was glitching out a little bit.
So if we had this youth meeting to go over all of your fantastic projects, what would you in a dream world want the youth or the adult involvement to be in that?
I think this kind of has to go with the first point of the third like umbrella question we asked, was like the mindset of just letting youth have the chance to speak to each other without necessarily a lot of adult intervention, because I think that the youth being able to talk to each other is important because we have like direct contact to each other, and being able to share our ideas like that without necessarily guidance of an adult, not necessarily that the guidance of an adult is bad, but I think that being able to share our ideas like fully flowed with just our opinions and perspective would be really good for each other, because then we can take, because as I said earlier, youth know what youth wants. And so if I want to hear what other youth want in my state, then I can apply that to the work that I do in my community.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a lot easier. I know some people can be a lot like shyer without an adult, or can be a bit hard uh, without guidance, but I think it would be great to hear everyone, because I know that sometimes if there's a lot of adults in the room, or like a lot of just people that I don't really know, can be a bit harder to talk to. But it kind of ties into the question that youth reach more out to other youth. So I think it would be a lot easier to continue the conversation um, with ourselves and people like us with their perspective. So I think it would be easier, maybe not as much adult guidance.
Mhm. So I think we're going to be wrapping it up. But there was a question about both of your programs that you're participating in are not necessarily connected to a school. Do you feel that it would be important for the agencies to have dedicated school like clubs or programs? Go ahead, Annika.
I mean, I've never really thought about clubs, but I think that's a great idea. But I do think that like making sure that schools and people in schools are involved is really important, because I know that when I first started volunteering at close to home, I would always come back to my leadership class and be like, hey, there's art submissions, or hey, check this out, you know, and it's like, or I'd post about it, as I said, on the Instagram page. And so I think that like getting schools involved is really important, because obviously school is where the youth is. So having that platform, you know, flyers around school, it talked about over intercom if you can, you know, whatever, because not every school allows everything, but whatever you can do at a school, I think is really important, because that's where the youth is. And so just a club would be great. I don't know how many people would, I mean, I think a club is actually a really good idea, because I think that it presents the ideas like right there, and they can have like those connections with people, but still be in a comfortable space like school, which I think is like a great mix of, you know, topics. And so I think that's a really good idea.
Estrella?
Yeah, I think that would be a lot better, because um, a lot of people may not know where their resources are to get information, like how to be involved, and like who to turn to ask, like, hey, where can I like volunteer? Is there anything you need help with that I can be like a part of? Um, so I think it would be great, because like you said, it's really like right there, and it kind of gives you more of a push to learn more and to talk more. And if you already know like some about it, you can hear other people's point of views. And it would be, I think, really beneficial for a few like communities to have that, to be able to talk. And yeah, it would be really good to have
Great. All right, I think we're going to wrap up here. Do either one of you have any like closing thoughts, any pearls of wisdom that you would like to share with us?
I don't know if it's really a pearl of wisdom, but I did want to, you know, thank everybody for coming here, and also just thank every one of the youth leaders and anyone that works with youth for giving us the opportunity to be able to share our ideas and giving us this platform, because I mean, we wouldn't really be able to do it without the people who give us this opportunity. And so I'm really thankful for having this opportunity to speak here and just be able to work in violence prevention in general, especially at such a young age. And so I just think I'm very, very grateful for the community that I'm in and everybody else who works in the state of California for this program as a whole.
Thank you. Stray, do you have any closing remarks?
I don't think so, but thank you everyone for doing like your jobs and helping out the communities because we need it. So I think it's great.
Thank you. Well, thank you, you two. I think this has been really enlightening, and I hope everybody enjoyed our topic for today.